Hello and welcome. This is the Zen community of Oregon, making the teachings of the Buddha Dharma accessible to support your practice. New episodes air every week.
As always, we begin by taking refuge in the transcendent truths. I take refuge in the Buddha mind. I take refuge in the Dharma, the teachings of truth. I take refuge in the Sangha, the only place that love and relationship can manifest. It's the only place that love can manifest. Thank you all for being here. This end of the year, nice quiet night. Because this is the last talk for a while, or at least the last talk of the year, I was reflecting about this last year, and then I started reflecting about the last decade or so. And I just started reflecting about what's actually happened in our worlds. And each of you, of course, have your own reflections about the things that have transpired in your life over these last months or years. And as you all know, there have been a few changes. I was starting back with just 9/11, 2001. A pivotal event for our society, changed our relationship to the world and to security and airplanes. And you think about all the changes that have happened in technology. 20 years ago, computers were basically big clunky things. There was no social media, there was no Zoom, there was no virtual doc visits. Just in this very brief period of time, things have dramatically changed in terms of social media, in terms of the way that we can connect. Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, whatever. And I was also thinking about, there was this great movement called the Occupy movement. In case you may remember, there was a big financial crisis back in 2008, perhaps, and there was Occupy Wall Street movement, and then there was Occupy this and Occupy that movement, and Portland was filled with people downtown, fighting the police, protesting inequality, social justice. All kinds of discussions, which are still ongoing, but they were in a real firmament about police brutality and the way that people of color were treated. And then the whole movement for LGBTQ plus has shifted and changed over these many years. I think the gay marriage was just passed, or just finally condoned by this Supreme Court in 2015. And if you remember, there was a whole period of Black Lives Matter. There was a whole period of /Me Too, the Me Too movement. If you remember the acrimony and the divisiveness of the past presidential elections, every presidential election is like that. The media tries to make it appear like it's a great race, so everybody will be riveted to it to see what the finish line is. But just think about the rise of the populist movement that we've experienced, and the enormous increase in bias, normal increase in acrimony between parties. Of course, that's been part of the nature of political realm. I was reading about George Washington's life, and in his time, the Federalists, the Republicans were so angry at each other they couldn't even be in the same room. And then, as we all know, in the 1800s, about 80 years later, everybody was so angry at each other that we actually had a civil war. And 600,000 people or more died. And reflecting on the past, remember Hillary Clinton or Kamala Harris? Their names were on everybody's tongue. They were mentioned every night for months or years, and they've disappeared. And the climate change, the climate awareness, of course, began back in the 60s, 70s. Rachel Carson's Silent Spring was one of the first big climate manifestos. But awareness of that has escalated, and now we have these mega storms that are happening, earthquakes, volcanoes. And a few years ago, we used to hear the term COVID-19. Every other day, people talk about COVID, but now I hear COVID occasionally, but just occasionally, but not the 19 part. And I was thinking about all the health recommendations that have happened over these I used to be a naturopathic doctor here in Oregon. And there was a time that eggs were regarded as good, eggs were regarded as bad, and margarine was regarded as good, and margarine was regarded as bad, and seed oil was regarded as good, and seed oil was regarded as bad, and paleo diets, and keto diets, and vegan diets, and intermittent fasting, and you just watch the waves just keep coming, waves of news, waves of this is important. There was a time that vitamin E was, vitamin E for the heart was touted everywhere, and you can go to any grocery store and there would be dozens of options of vitamin E, and now there's almost none. And then I was thinking about the hurricanes that we've had. I already mentioned that a little bit. All the Olympics, all the news about the Summer Olympics, the Winter Olympics, and where they're going to be held, and who's competing, and who's going to get the gold and the silver, and which country is going to do this and do that. They all disappear. I was looking at Wikipedia, and there are 76 pages under the rubric concerts, musical concerts. And some of those are the Rolling Thunder Review or the Never-Ending Tour of Bob Dylan, which went on for 30 years. So, and if you think about the people who have been born and all the people who have died, basically everybody we know is impending death. And all the well-known people, stars and presidents. Jimmy Carter just died today, or yesterday, at a high age 100. And then you think about your personal life, the relationships, the ups and the downs, and the sicknesses, and the crises, and the jobs that have been lost, and the moving, and the vacations, and the graduations, and the failures, and the dissolution of things. When you think about our life, our country, our world is a swirl of change. We were sitting here tonight, and it looks so nice and stable, and we look so calm. It looks like everything is kind of peaceful, and we keep hoping that we'll find a place of stability. But it really is like looking at a glass of water. Glass of water, because we can't see it well, looks still and calm. But if you put one drop of ink in, suddenly you see the swirling currents. Things look stable because we cannot see them clearly. If we could see one another's lives clearly, then we would see that we are a mass of pulsating change. If we could see the world clearly, it is a mass of pulsating change. That's life. Life is pulsating change. No pulsating change, no life. And we think things are stable because of our small information operating system, which can only process certain things. And so we kind of reduce reality down to what our mind can get a hold of. Right now, in the world, everything is happening at once. Oceans are warming, and coral is dying, and jungles are burning, and And crops are being planted and being harvested, and there was a property at Sotin and Shinegat has over 1,000 new trees planted in it for orchards. Right now, hospitals are being built, hospitals are being abandoned, patients are getting well, patients are getting sick, old people are dying, young people are being born. Right now, the whole cacophony of the world is alive and well, interacting, species dying, species being born. They discovered like 20 new species in one little spot of the ocean off the Tierra del Fuego. Lots of things happening. Everything's happening all at once. The simultaneity of reality is, stars are being born, stars are dying, stars are exploding, light is streaming everywhere. The sun is the nuclear reactor. The world is degenerating, the world is spinning. It only looks like we're sitting still, but the reality is the world is spinning, 900 miles an hour? I forgot what the speed is. It only looks, because we can't see it clearly, like things are stable. So the foundation of our life actually is this constant, dynamic, alive motion. And it's entropic. That is, it starts off in a more organized form, and as it changes, it grows, it expands. So we start off as this little bundle of organized human tissue, and as we grow and grow and grow, our minds grow, our bodies grow, we grow into adulthood, we grow into kind of seniorhood, we begin to dissolve again. Our minds are small and don't know much, and they learn a little bit, and they're constantly expanding until they disappear. And all of the good food, all the exercise, all the vitamins, all the good advice, all the things that we've done, it's part of becomes digested, and part of that growth, part of that expansion, part of that movement of life energy, part of entropy, everything becomes that. So that's just the way things are. And again, because of our particular information operating system, we have trouble. We can't actually experience that wholeness in this multiplicitory way I'm talking about. And so our information operating system takes the gigabits of photons that are coming into our eyes and the gigabits of information that are coming into our sensory apparatus and filters it out and cuts it down and reduces it down to the particular life, world, person that we think we are. That our lives are actually a reduction of the wholeness of things, a reduction of the inclusive nature of reality. We see things because the filters of our eyes and our optic nerve and our brain reduces the amount of the electromagnetic spectrum that's coming into our eyes. That's the way it is. Nothing wrong, nothing good about that. It just happens to be the way our lives work. Now, what is interesting in the point of this particular talk is in the course of the infinite unfolding of things, in the course of the exuberance of life and the total interweaving of life, we add the suffering-causing mind. We have the mind that instead of seeing the wholeness of things, instead of seeing the natural unfolding of karma that happens in all kinds of places, the natural coming together and coming apart of all things, the natural birth and death of all things, we have a mind that sees suffering, that causes suffering. We have a suffering-causing mind. Our mind causes, first of all, us to suffer. We have a mind that causes us to suffer. And this suffering, the nice thing about really recognizing the suffering-causing mind is, well, first off, we can do something about it. We don't have to keep feeding it. We don't have to believe it. We actually have the capacity to see through, see beyond, not kill, but to really see beyond into a wider understanding beyond the suffering-causing mind. And if we can see the way the suffering-causing mind works, if we can actually understand how does our mind cause us and everybody else to suffer, we actually have the capacity to shift. We don't have to go down the same old route every single time. Now, a lot of people, a lot of us, all of us, have a couple of strategies. One strategy is we actually try to palliate the suffering-causing mind. We try to distract it. We take it on a vacation. We make it feel calm. We come and meditate for an hour and feel calm. Or go to a long retreat and feel calm and feel bright. And then we walk out, and because we haven't really dealt with the suffering-causing mind, we take a vacation, but then as soon as we come home from the vacation, the suffering-causing mind starts causing more suffering. So we take a vacation. How do we take a vacation? People take vacations by going to casinos. They take vacations by going to horse races. They take vacations by going shopping, by going to the movies, by let's have a night out of the town. Let's buy a new house. Let's get in a new relationship. And it works. It's nice. I mean, vacations are nice. I highly recommend it's a really good vacation. No reason to not. But to realize that much of what we are doing is to palliate the suffering-causing mind. And it's not to actually see into the nature of the suffering-causing mind. Not to actually recognize, oh, even though I feel good for a little while, the mind that is constantly causing friction, distress, hasn't really been touched. Now, the way that mind works, the suffering-causing mind, first off, it can't see the wholeness of things. And in a way, it sees the separation of things. That's the root of it. I am separate. Things are separate. And as soon as we see the separation of things, we begin defining and defending personal territory. We begin imposing our view on the world. And then we get angry and we get reactive and we get upset. In the big picture, with a mind that is wide and inclusive, everything has a place. Every part of us has a place. Everything in the world has a place. It's all one big continuum that is swirling back and forth, that's interacting, and things being born and coming together and falling apart. And it's the lively, dreamlike nature of all of reality. But from our suffering-causing mind, we shrink ourselves down and we separate ourselves, and we begin blaming, and we begin criticizing, and we begin causing suffering. So it's really important to be able to differentiate our activities. Is this vacation activity, or is this an activity that is truly aimed at undermining the suffering itself? They're both fine, they're both good, but it's nice to know what we're actually doing. If we all decided tomorrow to go on a vacation and have a wonderful time, that'd be fantastic. But I guarantee we come back from that vacation and the old habits just keep picking up. If, on the other hand, we actually look into the suffering-causing mind, our suffering-causing mind, to the way our mind is working, our views, our fixed beliefs, and we actually see through them, we actually see into them, and we undermine the suffering-causing mind, then our lives suffer less. Our lives have more freedom. And our capacity to be human grows. The suffering mind, the suffering-causing mind, is always trying to kind of put things in a smaller box. I don't want to feel that, I don't want to feel this is unpleasant, I don't want to feel that. And before we know it, we have created so many boxes of things that we don't want to experience that we are left in a cocoon of confusion. We keep hoping that we'll find a place of pleasure, of happiness. But we're left in a cocoon of confusion, of separation. The freedom to truly be human, the freedom to truly be able to experience all of our life, the freedom to truly be able to accept the ups and the downs and the challenges and the exegesis of our life, the pleasures and the successes, is a liberation. Liberation is not about, I will have the capacity to feel a certain few things I want to feel, but the capacity to feel the whole human spectrum without suffering. The human spectrum includes birth and death and being born. It is really important to know, if we're in therapy, for example, is this therapy that's aimed at palliation, or is it aimed at liberation? And so that differentiation between palliation and liberation is part of what spiritual practice is. Now, the palliation part, all of us need to be good at that. What does that mean? It means we need to be able to find a place how to calm our mind down. We need to be able to find a place where we can breathe, find a place that is centered, find a place that has some equanimity and some clarity to it. If we can't do that, we are destabilized for life. So we have to be able to do that. But that itself is not liberation. And that's one of the dismays that people have. They go to retreats, they practice really hard. They find themselves in a calm and bright place. They feel like, oh, my practice is really doing good. And then they go home, they leave the community, they stop practicing, and the suffering-causing mind, which has not yet been penetrated into, suddenly roars its head back, roars up. So our practice is fundamentally, partly, it's about how do we find calmness, equanimity, clarity? Great. But it's for mostly, the spiritual part is, can I see through the suffering-causing mind? And one of the ways of doing that is we stop believing our thoughts. You can think anything. So one of the ways of looking at it is when we are suffering, when we have dismay and distress and despair, when there's friction in our life and we feel failure, to look at the nature of thought itself. What's the evidence? The evidence is always just a thought. Body has a particular sensation, and we have thoughts about it. To learn to look at the nature of thought, to see into thought, to realize, oh, we can think anything, any thought can arise, and we can't prevent it. But all thoughts are dreamlike. They can be used, they cannot be used, but they're all dreamlike. To have a direct insight into the dreamlike nature of thinking, to have a direct insight into the dreamlike nature of all those things that we think of are hard and fixed and the way things are, to have a direct experience into that begins to undermine, see through, awaken beyond the suffering mind. And the qualities of the non-suffering mind are it's calm, it's wide, it sees long, it's inclusive, it has a kind of satisfaction as part of it. Not afraid, confident. So that's the hope, is that, my hope, is that all of you, all of us, have the aspiration to see beyond, good experiences, bad experience, into and find liberation from the mind that causes suffering. And the Buddha, he didn't put it quite that way, but he said that things are okay, except that we are greedy, that we are just constantly separating. And that's what greed is separation. I'm here and the thing is there and I want something that's not there. It's fundamental separation is the essential thing. So part of practice is, can we have a direct experience into the whole inclusive nature of mind? And our minds, just as they are already whole and inclusive. We just don't recognize it. We believe the mind of separation, the mind of smallness. So we come to practice. We do a retreat. But unless we look directly at the genesis of the suffering-causing mind, all of our practice is palliative. So for this new year, I encourage everyone to rouse the aspiration to see deeply into your own beyond psychology, into your own fixed beliefs, and to find the capacity to be human, which has imbued with acceptance and loving kindness. All right. Have a couple more minutes. Any comments, insights, examples, online or off? Ms. Terry Dudek. If you'd say your name just so I get a chance to learn people's names.
With this habit we have of trying to get rid of suffering with escape, where does creativity fall?
You have to be very creative to get away from suffering. Our old habits are not very, the old habits, the old familiar things that we've done over and over again, it's not very creative, right? So you have to actually change, you have to shift the pattern in some way, and that takes creative mind. The universe is naturally creative. Anybody who's interested in complexity theory realizes things are not deterministic. Unexpected arises from all kinds of places.
If you're creating art or music or writing?
Sure. There is great art and there is mediocre art. And there's art that's not art, but that's in the eye of the beholder. So I think there are artistic things that touch the transcendental, that touch the universal, that touch the inclusive, that touch that touch the heart. And there are things that are just kind of busy work. So my suggestion is feel as deeply as you can, be as authentic and genuine as you can, and paint your heart out. Or sing your heart out. Or dance your heart out. Or come to my workshop and you can build your heart out.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Ms. Tegan? Not, all right. This is Diane Cole.
Why do you think the mind wants to go to suffering?
I don't know. That's a very interesting question. From my experience, if you ask why, there are fundamentally only two answers.
Why not?
Why not? There's three answers. All right, three answers. I don't know. And because. Now, if you're asking, how does the iPad work? I mean, nobody really knows how the iPad works. I could tell. I think maybe a whole conglomerate of people might know in some way. But when we really get to the fundamental questions, I don't know. It's a mystery. I mean, the world is a mystery. Why does it work like that? But it's up to us, though, to work with the mystery, not to be at the mercy of the mystery. TW has something to say?
I think the thing I wanted to say was that I have OCD, and so when you say, like, we're all gonna, like, everyone is being born and dying, and there's terrible things happening.
And good things.
And there's good stuff, and like, it's all happening now, and everything is profoundly unstable. I'm always like, I know, dude, I think about that like every minute of every day. So I'm wondering, like, what kind of teaching you might offer to someone who only thinks about how unstable the world is and can barely function because of that. Like, what would be an alternative teaching to focus on? Because I don't feel like thinking about the impermanence and instability of things actually helps me function. But it might for other people that don't feel that way.
So when it's time to wash the dishes, you wash the dishes. When it's time to sweep the house, you sweep the house. When it's time to make the bed, you make the bed. When it's time to go to work, you go to work. I mean, that is the manifestation of fluidity. If it wasn't fluid, we couldn't do those things. So directly engaging in the moment-to-moment simple things of life is profound, is the profound functioning of the universe. Washing dishes, sweeping the floor, profound functioning of the universe. Not a lesser teaching. But most people can't see that. They think it's got to be something grander. So I think, to be able to really appreciate the whole universe is functioning when I raise my hand, when you raise your hand, when you open a door. Congratulations. Yeah, keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Anything else? Your name is Saul, right?
Saul.
Okay.
So you're talking about palliative care and liberation, which is interesting to me, and I'm wondering, I guess in my mind I'm thinking of it as like, there's this stream of suffering inside our minds, and palliative care is like the coping mechanisms that we have to kind of deal with that, and liberation is like how we would reduce the volume of that stream. And I'm wondering if
cut the root. Not just reduce the volume, cut the root.
cut it, yeah. Are there certain particular techniques within meditation that you've found tend to get people from palliative care to what you're calling liberation, or is that just kind of like a moment or a place that you might suddenly arrive at?
Great question, great question. So first off, palliative care is wonderful. If you ever work with hospice, palliative care is, really, 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 really important. There's nothing wrong with taking a vacation. But it's important to know that palliative care is not curative. And so we're interested in the spiritual path, which is about the cure. The Buddha said that he laid out the Four Noble Truths. Four Noble Truths, everybody has challenges. The challenges are caused by clinging and clutching and greed, dissatisfaction. That there is a liberation from all that. It is possible to become awakened, and that the way to manifest that is through integrity of precepts and practice and wisdom. Now, if we look at, so all of us can raise our hand. Just raise your hand a little bit. And we look, how did that happen? How did I actually raise my hand? Maybe we had a thought, I'm going to raise my hand. Maybe we didn't even have a thought. Maybe the hand raised. Well, there's a mystery in that. And if we look carefully, there's a mystery. And how can we deal with the mystery of thought arising? How can we deal with this mystery? And the one tool that we have that will penetrate that is alert awareness. To be alertly aware of what is the experience of this instant is the tool that cuts through. When we're not alertly aware, we get lost in thought, we get lost in belief, we pull back into all this stuff. But alert awareness is really fundamentally the only tool we have. And something we can address the alert awareness. I'm going to be aware of my hand moving from here to here. But in this case, to turn alert awareness to the suffering-causing mind and to look at what is it? What is it? Where does it arise from? What is it? And that is the tool that is so easy to talk about, but it's hard to do. But it can happen lying in bed sick. It can happen if you're in the ocean swimming. It can happen if you're sitting in a zendo. To turn the mind to the origin of thought, the origin of I. Who am I? And, it's really good to learn how to breathe and calm your mind down and count, and it's really good to learn how to do body scans. It's really good to, to do all the other things that we do. They're all ancillary practices. So there is the palliative practice, there's the liberative practice, but that liberation has got to function. So it's not just about I'll see some truth and I'll have certain liberation. It has to function. And the function, the sign of a healthy functioning is compassion, inclusivity, helping support others in their liberation. Anybody else? Fred, you always ask things when you're online. How you are in the room, you should ask something.
The one thing that came up for me was this is also what just has to be driven by that deep desire for transformation and intense curiosity about what that transformation, how that transformation is going to manifest. That's, I think that's kind of self-evident, but it's just, to me, that's been the engine that's kept me so intensely engaged in practice over the years.
And that's, I feel like that's absolutely true. And the prerequisite for that is you have to believe it's possible.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's what I'm addressing tonight, is what is possible. But without that aspiration, we get what we aspire for.
Yeah, I've had difficulties and things that took me away from practice, but that underlying deep desire. It's kept me going.
Yeah.
It animates so much.
I was actually thinking of, I'm an old boomer, so I grew up I was born in the last 50th of the first half of the 20th century. And the music that we listened to was, Joni Mitchell and the Beatles and all those, Joan Baez and Bob Dylan and Peter, Paul and Mary and all those people. And I think, I was listening to some of them as I was working, and there's a longing in all that old music. There's a longing, at least certainly in me. It kind of gets touched. My 18-year-old, my 20-year-old longing for liberation is always kind of associated with that music. So I listen to that and I feel there's this longing for, what is it? What is it? And I think that longing is a really important part of the path. So, may it never be satisfied. Thank you all very much.
Thank you for listening to the Zen Community of Oregon podcast, and thank you for your practice. New episodes air every week. Please consider making a donation at zendust.org. Your support supports us.